Welcome to the Trash Cats Trashcast. I'm Richard.
I'm Steven.
And today we're going to discuss the anatomy of the universe and the closest thing that humans have to a theory of everything. But first, Steven, how was your week?
It's been all right, man. It's a crazy week. This topic is going to be nuts, though, man.
Yeah.
About to have your minds blown.
I've been looking forward to this shit.
Yeah, this will be wild. Because I don't know what I'm talking at all. It's going to be the smart friend telling the dumb friend things. It'll be fun.
I also barely know what I'm talking about, so
We'll figure it out together. My week's been all right. I've been fighting with people in YouTube comments a lot. I had a job interview that the interviewer didn't show up for, and then
it's always fun.
Yeah, it's been a weird one. And then, but yesterday I did have a big interview, and it went really well. So I got fingers crossed. I do have a little anxious energy because after this podcast, I have to do a bunch of tests and homework for this job position. So it's going to likely be an all-nighter, but it's what I've been working for a while. So I'm feeling all right about it. And then just working on art, hanging out with the kitty. She's over here lounging right now. So it's been an okay week.
I got two comments on that. Well, one's a question.
Okay.
But first, the comment. So actually, I had a situation where I no-showed for a job interview when I was interviewing someone else once. I asked this girl to come in, and I gave her a time, and she showed up, but I had to run to the grocery store to pick up a couple things, and I completely forgot about it. So they showed up at the restaurant, and they called, my staff called me like, hey, there's someone here looking for you. They said they were supposed to be in an interview with you. And I was like, oh, shit. Hand them the phone. So I talked to him on the phone and was...
That's an awkward position.
Basic shit, but I ended up just giving her the job anyways because she was there and we needed the help. But
was she good?
Yeah. She was one of the very last people. She stuck around to the bitter end.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, this one was weird because there were like 10 other people being interviewed and they just didn't get a hold of anyone. It was like, oh, shit.
Fucking stupid.
Yeah, that's bad. I want to just like write them a letter instead of a thank you and mail it to them, and they'll open it up and I'll just say, you're fired.
You're fired.
Fire them.
You're fired. Who are you fighting in the YouTube comments and also on which videos?
I can send you the specific videos. I got into one thing on videos by Kyle Kalinske. I like him. He's a political commentator, but it's mostly been about religious stuff. And I've been spam commenting, dismantle the church. After our last episode, Peter Abroy's inspired me, and I've been just spam commenting, dismantle the church, and arguing with anybody who disagrees.
So you did start it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is very accurate.
Nice.
How about you? How's your week been, man?
Week's been great. So we checked out the new house that we did for sure get. We
dude, I'm
went in
so
for the
excited
inspection.
For you.
Dude, it's gonna be so
That's
dope.
so cool.
So it is, I am still moving in there with my mom where we're co-owners. It's a 3-family unit kind of situation. We will have a tenant that's living there. He's on like a month-to-month kind of thing right now anyway, because he's doing residency at a local hospital, but he's not planning on being there more than a year. And it's like, we're not going to kick dude out. Like, that's fucked. So, yeah, it fucking looks great. I've been like planning. I went there for the inspection day and like made a map of like my living space, and I've been making plans for it and looking at different little repairs and, different jobs I'm going to be putting myself to. So, my anxiety is stemming towards that I want to get it done kind of shit. I want to get started, but we haven't closed yet. So we can't be in there yet.
You're going to be set up in your own, Trash Cat studio in no time, man.
Yeah, man. We did I did a barbecue for my former staff at my last place.
Yeah.
We didn't get a chance to do a barbecue last year. I really wanted to, and it didn't happen because of COVID. So we took the opportunity to this year, and it turned out really fun. A couple of them didn't show up, which is a bummer, but we still had a good time, and it was cool.
Hell yeah, dude.
Hell yeah.
Chill week. Chill week. Busy weeks.
It's been nice.
What about honorable mentions? You got anything?
I do actually this week. I have 2.
Fuck yeah.
First, I want to shout out the book you got me not too long ago. Michio Kaku, The God Equation. It's one of his, I think it's his newest release.
Yeah.
And it's really good. I haven't finished it yet. I have mostly kind of, I do this weird thing with like, when I know books are more like informational kind of books, is I like to like pick a little spot, like kind of like, flip through it and pick a spot and then like open it up and like read the information on, that page and kind of get sucked into it that way.
Gear up for it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff that, it's written so that it's simple enough that people that are, beginners in the field of it can like get into it, but also people that are well versed in string theory can like understand it, and like that they're learning new things and finding better ways to explain it, which is fun.
Yeah. When we link up in person, we gotta back up hard drives, but we should also do a book swap. I'd like to read that one.
Yeah,
of these days.
man.
I got
Absolutely.
Either the drug book, Drug Use of Grown-Ups, or The Man's Search for Meaning. I think you'll like a lot.
Oh yeah, that one for sure.
I gotta get that back from my cousin.
The second honorable mention I have is Kurzgesagt.
Yeah.
It's a YouTube channel, and I will spell that out for you. It is Kurzgesagt. Kurzgesagt is a channel that's all about like different scientific ideas and weird shit, anywhere from like string theory stuff to like what happens when you die kind of shit. That's like a lot of theories and fun stuff, and like kind of informing you like what's what people are thinking and like what popular ideas are. But it's all animated, and it's really pretty art style animated. But they're really well put together videos.
Yeah.
They have them in a couple different languages too, which is cool. They have a German channel and a Spanish channel, which I think is fun. But it's really cool information, and they make it pretty simple. And the animation, like I said, is also just beautiful by itself.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I like I remember the spot with the bird. Like that by seeing things, you affect them, and it showed the light hit the bird. So good. The animation was really good. Dude, that just reminded me when you said the different languages. Have you seen, I might fuck it up. I believe it's just called Criminal. It's a Netflix series, but there's a different series for like Germany, Spain, Britain, the US.
No.
Dude, it is surprisingly good. So the whole premise of the show is just an interrogation. So somebody's suspected of a crime, and they're in the interrogation room. So pretty much the whole episode is in one room. Like it could have been done in one shot, but they break it up with shots. But it's about the detectives in the room and the detectives behind the double-sided mirror, and then communicating to catch a subject. And each series is just in a different country and totally unrelated cases. And it's like some good psychological thriller writing. It's really good.
Hell yeah.
Suspenseful.
I did watch the second season of Lupin.
It was fun.
Yeah, I liked it.
I liked it too.
I liked the way the season opener fucking tugged at your heartstrings and left you on a big cliffhanger. That was cool.
I kind of forget what the opener was.
He's in the house with the dude that just kidnapped his kid.
Yeah. Fire. Yeah.
Yeah, the fire.
Yeah, that show's super cheesy, but it's a fun watch. Like, I enjoyed it.
They made a little reference to the anime in the season finale with the little yellow Fiat.
I'm not familiar.
The 58 yellow Fiat was their his boys' getaway ride. That's from the anime.
I didn't even know it was an anime.
Oh my god, yeah, that's why I love Lupin so much. It's because Lupin the Third is the anime.
Gotcha. I'm gonna have to get the full scoop from you later. Yeah, I wasn't even gonna mention the criminal one. My honorable mentions. The first one, it's this dude. His name is Mark Constantine Indicil. All right, so his Instagram page is at Mark MarkInducil. This
Mark and Dussel.
The piece I linked is called Dreamscape Tripper, And I really like this piece. It's like a floating landscape. He does, he's a 3D render artist. He does NFTs, some motion graphics, prints. They're surreal and abstract renders, essentially. But I really like the piece I linked to. But he's one of the artists that kind of meets my theory that sometimes a distinct, noteworthy style that is interesting is more powerful than it being like just right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like his colors and composition are just so bold and fun. And it's not the colors or like shapes I would want to see, but it's undeniably interesting, or it just really draws me in. I love the blacks. I don't know. What do you think of him?
I really dig it. I'm looking through his other artwork now. The piece you sent me is incredible, but I'm looking through his pieces, and there is like a large series of these pieces that he uses a lot of similar colors in, and they're all constructed enough that they look different. Right. But I love the coordination between it. It really works because of the style and the very uniqueness of what he does.
It's so distinctly his. He owns the style. And it's also cool if you scroll, I mean, like many artists, but he's a great example of it. If you scroll back through his page, you really can see every step of his evolution turning into the art that he makes now. I really don't like his early work, and I don't say that out of like a diss in any sense. He continued to grow, and it just became more evolved and advanced until he turned it into this like surreal, cartoony, bubbly, like space world.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's more. I guess it's darker both in appearance, and it's almost like mysterious more, I guess.
Yeah. It definitely, like, you can see the growth in like mystique. It's mystique-y. Mystique-y art. That's fun. I really like him. I just came across him this week. I also, for anybody that follows by chance, we featured in the past, Pit of Bones just released a sneak peek on a painting he's working on that's really cool. But my second honorable mention is this article. It's on Boing Boing, if anybody's familiar. The article is titled AI Used to Recreate Missing Edges of Rembrandt's Night Watch. So Rembrandt got some cool stuff, right? But I don't give a fuck about this painting. But what they did is just so cool. So the Night Watch, a colossal painting from 1642 by Dutch master Rembrandt, was even larger before extensive material was cropped from it, which is not uncommon in art history. Pieces get mutilated to fit frames and different things all the time. Researchers working with the Dutch National Museum and Art Gallery used artificial intelligence to recreate the missing material. The work accomplished is not mere texture and shadow at the margins of an already dark composition, but whole figures regenerated in Rembrandt style based on a high-quality copy painted by Gerrit Lundens before the original was butchered in 1715.
Wow.
It is surprisingly believable.
Yeah.
I mean, because they are figures that are kind of in the back, kind of shrouded in darkness a little bit, but it changes the composition in a great, it brings the life of the original back to it, and it doesn't, like, I wouldn't know that was artificially created at all.
It definitely looks like Rembrandt.
Yeah, there's some zoom ins on the details of this. We'll definitely be posting the pictures on our Instagram because this is so cool, dude. I mean, what if they're artificially creating? I mean, there already is people experimenting with this. It's not a novel idea, but creating artificial intelligence art, it gets freaky, right?
Yeah, what was the thing you might be able to do it now still? Like, was it Google Sleep or something like that?
Yeah,
do some weird shit like that.
I ran a bunch of my old art through that, and it's fun. I don't like the style they do theirs in. Yeah, but it's I think it's called the Google Dream something. It's Dream or
Dream.
Sleep. But yeah, there's like a handful of artificial intelligence art projects going on right now, and they make some really weird stuff. It's interesting. We'll have to talk about that in detail another time. My last honorable mention, I was just going to shout out, if anybody hasn't seen Midnight Gospel, I highly recommend watching it. It's very weird. The art's kind of like Mark Indicil, but I really love the graininess that they do, but it's similar in the bright colors and weird space vibe. But that whole show, it's basically the dude's podcast where they just animate the stories, and it's just really fun, but it's also like some heavy topics and questioning ourselves in the world, and it goes right along with what our theory or our topic is today. Mm-hmm. You want to kick us off?
Yeah.
All
so,
right.
If it wasn't clear, we're talking about string theory today.
String cheese theory.
Yeah. So, first of all, I'm an enthusiast, not an expert or a scientist. Steven is the scientist here, Dr. Professor Steven.
I'm a bad doctor.
Feel free to call me out on things that I get wrong. I'm not on the forefront of the study. I just really like theoretical physics. Also, my cat is fucking shit up in here.
Yeah, mine's about to do the same. I can already tell.
So, understanding that the way we view the universe in theories of nature, it's more or less pretending or supposing based on what is observable in nature. That being said, the things that we posit as theories have to be predictable and yield the same result every time with no exception. Even one failure to replicate results in that theory is no longer valid. Even if it's close, it's just not correct. So we can't take it on for any kind of value.
And that gravity is a theory still, right?
Right,
because
exactly.
We can't fully calculate every aspect of it.
Right. It doesn't work in, quantum theory, at least within particle physics. We can make it work with string theory. We'll get into that here in a minute.
Real quick, I did want to mention, so at least for other people that may feel like I do, I find string theory and a lot of these topics very confusing and complex. We're going to do our best to address it in a simple way, make it as understanding as possible, but primarily look at it from a philosophical point of view and just kind of explore it. I'm going to be asking them a lot of dumb questions, and we're going to have fun with it. So I don't want anyone to feel like it's too difficult or, I don't know, confusing, because I find it confusing as shit, but it's so fun. So
the goofs don't stop just because we're talking about science shit.
We're pro science goof.
So to answer the question, what is string theory? There's two answers you can give.
Okay.
There's the short answer and the long answer. So the short answer, is so all the matter in the universe is made of vibrating lines or strings rather than particles like we previously suspected. For most of our usage, particle physics is totally fine. It illustrates a simple and meaningful understanding of everything observable to the eye. So everything that a normal person would encounter in their lifetime. And it only becomes a problem when you start to question how the laws of nature and reality work in quantum mechanics. As we've been doing more recently in history. So the short answer really is each point in time in space is actually a string.
All right. I got questions.
Yeah.
All right. So for clarification, what is the short answer of what particle physics is?
Particle physics is physics based around the idea that atoms, the subatomic particles are actually just particles. They're just dots of matter.
And that's as small as we know how to get things.
Right. They're so small that we can't really even observe them properly. And we suspect that instead of them being dots, they are actually vibrating strings.
Now, when we've discussed this and during the research, that alone just throws me, right? The idea. So I get a point in time and space, right? The smallest point we can make. I can picture that being a point. But when someone says no, the point's not actually a point, it's a string. that like instantly throws me because I can't visualize it right away. So when we are going through it, what kind of helped me is the idea that it's not that this is just like an example for being able to picture it, not that it, I don't know I don't know what I'm saying, but not that a point is a string, because that makes me think the string is a bunch of points, but that the point is actually composed of a string.
Yes.
That helped me. I don't know why. That's a small distinction, but that helps me think of the point as some, the point actually is a string, and the string is composed of even more points that function as a string, and they're all moving and interacting. The
way I visualize it in my head is usually like, I was going to say, think of like your computer mouse or something, but I usually go like straight to the elements. So like if you think of like a brick of gold.
Sure.
That's, supposedly,
that's
like
point.
Pure gold, something, like if it's pure, that's all it is. It's just, this is just gold.
Okay.
So like what that means is that like on an elemental level, we can measure that, and we know how many, atoms it has, and we know, or not how many atoms, but how many, electrons and stuff it has. So we can measure that, but then we're saying that each one of those, the atoms that build it up, that make that matter, that it's already so small and so, borderline insignificant, that there are so many particles that make up that atom, and those, instead of them being particles, they're actually vibrating strings.
And part of that idea is that with our current technology and just basic human senses, we're not able to perceive all the possibilities of smaller particles yet that could compose these points. That the points could be strings of other particles we don't fully understand and can't measure yet.
Yeah. So even with tech, we don't see them. We see like a fuzzy cloud kind of a situation. We don't see
That's so wild.
The particles themselves. So it's very well possible that they're just strings, that they're just vibrating things that that makes more sense even.
Yeah. Do you know by any chance, is there a name for what that cloud is called? Because it just sounds like cool.
It would just be the particle.
But I want a cool cloud name. I like names for clouds.
It's not really a cloud. It's just a
cloud.
Blurry image. Okay, it's a cloud.
It's a blurry
that was
cloud.
The short answer.
Yeah. Let's get the long one now.
the long version.
All right.
And this does get a little heavy in some terminology and stuff.
I'm going to stop you often. We'll get through it though. All right.
Okay. In physics, string theory is a theoretical framework in which the point-like particles of particle physics are replaced by one-dimensional objects called strings.
Question.
String theory describes how strings propagate through time and space and interact with each other.
Okay.
You said you had a question?
How can the string be one-dimensional? Isn't the point?
Because a line is one dimension.
I get that. I know we're going to go into the dimensions.
Now here's the thing that we'll get into in a little bit more in detail. There are theories that they are not one-dimensional.
See,
and that changes things.
That's the only way that could make sense to me, is if the strings were three-dimensional, because they're like an atom is three-dimensional, right?
Because it's made up of many, 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 many strings.
Right, but how could you have... Oh, you're saying where like multiple one-dimensional strings could be making...
Could build up to a third dimension.
But yes. Why is the assumption... the smallest point of a string is one-dimensional? Why would it not be three-dimensional?
Because it's a line, and lines are one-dimensional.
Okay. All right. We're going to revisit that.
We'll get to it. Don't worry. Yeah. We'll get to it. I definitely have a thing in here where we talk about that.
Cool.
So on distance scales larger than the string scale, which is like not even like just microscopic scales, like not even like in like our size scale of like how we view things. And scales larger than the string scale, a string looks just like an ordinary particle. Its mass, its charge, and other properties determined by the vibrational state of the string. In string theory, one of the many vibrational states of the string corresponds to the graviton, which is a quantum mechanical particle that carries gravitational force. Thus, string theory is a theory of quantum gravity. It's the thing that unifies gravity, the theory of gravity, with, the theory of physics, with the rest of physics. And that's the theory of everything. That's really the thing that makes it work.
Okay. So these strings are vibrating.
Yes. So finding a unified theory of everything really became possible. It really became a possible concept after Einstein's theory of relativity. Shortly thereafter, our understanding of subatomic particles expanded as we smashed atoms together to see what came out, and we discovered dozens of brand new particles with differing behaviors and relationships. These are the quarks, leptons, neutrinos, and bosons. There was actually a whole period of time in like the 50s, 60s where they were saying like they called it the particle zoo because there were so many of them that they were finding, and they're like, there's way more of these than we ever expected to find.
Why don't we hear about those more? Is it because they don't fit into our particle theory stuff as easy? Like in school,
the quarks and leptons and shit?
Yeah, like in school, neutrons, protons, electrons. You don't hear about all the particles in the particle zoo. You know what I mean?
If you're not doing science with them, it's not really necessary information.
Because they're never going to come up. The smallest level,
it's never going to affect your life in any way. It's more of like if you're, on the research edge of it, that it makes sense to even give a shit about it.
Okay, I got two more questions. Okay. So when you say vibrating, to me that makes me think all of the, like you have a single string, right? Mm-hmm. And in theory, that string is made of many strings or many points. The
string is the smallest, at least is the smallest. Yeah.
Okay. So when it's vibrating, does that mean the particles that make up the string are interacting?
The string isn't made up of particles. The string isn't made up of particles. The string is the particles. The string is a particle that makes up something else.
Okay. When you say it is the particle, is that a collective way of saying there actually are multiple particles that make up the particle that is a string? Like, does it have multiple things? No.
Okay. So the string is the smallest thing.
Okay.
Okay. The strings make up particles.
Okay.
The particles make up, electrons and shit like that.
Gotcha. Okay. That helps me a bit. All right. And then, I know gravity. I know a little bit quantum physics. What exactly would quantum gravity be?
Quantum gravity is the combining quantum mechanics and gravity.
I know. I'm just trying to picture what that would be.
So quantum mechanics and gravity don't work in particle physics, because which I'm going to get to. I have that. That's also in this explanation.
Cool.
So I'll just go along with. I'll keep going here because it's in this next part here.
Cool. Go for it.
So observing the quarks and leptons and neutrinos and bosons and whatever, observing them is a problem because to observe something you need light. However, traditional light waves pass right over the sea of these particles because of their size. Then scientists have attempted to tighten up the wavelength of the light used, but that increases the energy of the wave and it affects the behavior of the particles. This is called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. And what that means is like when you have a beam of energy that you're hitting something with, it's going to affect it, whether it's heating it up or it's, in some way it's transferring energy to that particle. So it's behaving in a different way than it would normally if it weren't being spectated.
Right.
So understanding the nature of it is what, what we want to do, but we can't.
Yeah. And that's when in the animation, with the bird, they were saying, seeing something is the same as touching it. And there, as an analogy, if it comes up, I don't know, can you hear? It started raining here and we might get some nice ASMR.
Cool. Nice.
I think that's what I was hearing.
Cool.
Yeah. I love that name too. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
Yeah. It's like the founding, concept of modern physics.
Yeah.
It's especially particle physics. And what we do know is that gravity doesn't behave the same in quantum mechanics, like I said, but the idea that these particles aren't actually particles at all helps to explain this behavior in regards to gravity. And the theory states that instead of particles, each element is made of vibrating strings of matter. And when you think of each vibration, think of like how on a violin, each string in vibration makes a different note. And the different vibrations of strings, in the string theory make each different particle. Even, changing it just a little bit changes the type of particle that it is. And that includes gravity, which, the physics work, and it's quickly become known as the possible theory of everything. There's just the main problem is that the reality of string theory has stipulations that the most important being the universe has to have 10 dimensions.
At least 10, right?
Yeah. Technically, there are more, but we can't even begin to comprehend what that looks like or what that is, which we'll get into in a little bit too. And there are a few ideas as to what that means and where to find those extra dimensions. Like some are small, and some might be very large, but it's hard to imagine and find within our 3 spatial and the 1 temporal dimensions that we have been accustomed to.
Right. We can only perceive the 3 dimensions and the 4th being time. Dude, what a daunting task to try to create a theory of everything. Have you ever tried to do that? Like, not necessarily from a scientific point of view, but like the either a moral or philosophical sense where you try to define like a code or moral or how everything is in the world.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, it's so fucking hard. That is something
that I've spent many nights. Actually, one of my favorite things I used to do when I lived in Florida, I'd go to this bar and I would get a beer and then go sit like a really heavy, like imperial stout, something I knew was gonna, I could space out over 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And I'd go sit in the back outside and I would contemplate things like this to myself. I'd have like a sketchbook or something that I might draw in a little bit, but then I'd look up at stars and like, this is what I would think about.
Yeah. Right.
And it would usually be stuff more like philosophical in concept about like the meaning of life and, what really is, what, really could be out there and like what makes sense. And the crazy thing is there's so many different theories out here about like, if string theory is real, what that unlocks and what that could mean for, gravity on a macro scale and like what happens in a black hole and like wormholes and shit like that, which we're definitely going to get into. But like some of the ideas are so buck wild that, actual physicists are looking at it like, it's not the most outlandish thing.
Yeah. And assuming, string theory could be true, there could be an infinite amount of Rickies at an infinite amount of bars drinking infinite amount of beers, all trying to write their Bushido code to live by. I think that's a fun idea.
It is a fun idea. Yeah. One of them cracked it.
Yeah, one of them. They got it. Dude, it is so hard to put some of those things in words sometimes. A theory of everything. It's so daunting.
Yeah. So consider what gravity actually is. It's a geometric theory of mapping space-time and its correlation with mass. Gravity is like a playground that all the matter and forces of the universe play on. It's different from the other forces, and we have yet to completely understand the boundaries and rules of it.
That's so crazy. It like you learn so much about it, like in school as a kid, just life in general. It's something we take for granted. But it's like, it's so weird to think it's not fully understood with something we interact with constantly,
Yeah. Gravity is one of the main forces of nature that we don't fully comprehend yet. And it's holding us back from a lot of development.
Right.
And it's like I said earlier, we know enough to understand the day-to-day life on our planet. But when you begin to dig deeper into it, the math just doesn't work in a replicable way. Okay. And until it does, gravity is just a theory.
So is math.
So is math.
Math's not even real.
if a 15-year-old can invent calculus, then it's all theory. And we have to understand gravity really before we can move forward. Okay. Forward meaning studying the creation and the expanse of our universe, understanding quantum mechanics and using this knowledge to advance our own technology. The search for the building blocks of our universe has led us already to incredible inventions and capabilities, and it only stands to reason that we can expect much, much more of that once we fully understand the laws of physics.
Right. Now, we discovered the particle zoo. When I say that, obviously we were personally involved. We were there. There was some cat in the background while they were doing these experiments, and they told us.
Knocking over beakers. And
we were there.
Turning on Bunsen burners.
But, they discovered the particle zoo and these different things when they were splitting particles, right?
Right.
And that was all...
the big Hadron Collider.
Right. And all of those experiments essentially stemmed from creating bombs.
I think, the initial research was in, not to say that there wasn't some looking into that before this, but then, a lot of the research that went into it was funded with the idea that we could, militarize this.
Right.
And that's how we made the atom bombs.
That's kind of what I was getting to, that it's so much of what our understanding of the world can ultimately be correlated with our military budget sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
It's so fucked. We should be so interested and invested in just understanding for understanding's sake. And the scientists are, but
the fucking Manhattan Project, man.
Yeah.
They got way more than they bargained for out of it.
Right. So we're trying to fully understand the laws of physics, right?
Right.
All right.
So the main problem of that, of course, the question is does it work? Does string theory work? It's we're stuck in an impasse.
Okay.
Because by all means of math and theory, yes, it totally works, and we should be stoked about it. String theory is the closest we've had to a unified theory of everything. The problem is those extra dimensions. We haven't found them yet. And because of that, we haven't been able to prove any predictions of string theory through experiments, which means that it's, it's just by some people's point of view, it's not useful at all. But that's still wrong. It's still important because it gives us an idea of a goal. And it's true that sometimes you find things when you aren't looking for them, but when you know what you're searching for, it gives you a great advantage on it.
Right. If string theory is real, having that understanding as a researcher, scientist, whatever, you can look for answers to other things with that theory in mind and be much more successful in your work, right? But if the theory is wrong, in a lot of ways, it would be doing a great amount of harm, right? Because it gets people to look in directions that aren't there.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've done that for years and then, found different things and we're like, okay, well, this was just completely wrong and we should.
Right.
And then some people haven't, don't do that. And that's why we have religions.
And there's been a lot of that with gravity itself also, right? People thinking they have a theory figured out with gravity that isn't quite right and work can go the wrong way.
I think it's less about that they don't have it right. They don't have it completed.
Right.
So they might have ideas about the way that something works, how what happens in a black hole or what happens in quantum mechanics, but it doesn't work that way. And we have, the general relativity theory, and that explains a lot. That does a decent amount for gravity on explaining kind of how it relates with shit.
Right. So we think string theory is working. We can't know for sure yet because these dimensions aren't like portals we can just pop into, right?
Right.
So why is it so important?
Well, it's, like I said, the math is still there. So physics is based on math, and the math of string theory does work out, and that's why it's still relevant and important.
Okay.
One of the Kurzgesagt video that we watched, it describes it this way. It says, so imagine you want to build a cruise ship, but you only have the design plan for a small rowboat. There are plenty of obvious differences, but fundamentally the concept and purpose is the same. So by studying the rowboat blueprints, you may learn something about how to build a cruise ship. And the idea is that like we have a theory that works, and it works across everything that we have, all the other theories that we know also work. It's like finding a missing puzzle piece. And it's like, we know that this one should go here. It should go somewhere in here. But we need to find a couple other pieces to be completely sure.
Yeah.
Or to prove, not even to be sure, but to prove that it does.
See, when we get into the dimensions, that's more where I can start to wrap my head around it. But I don't feel like I can grasp it fully enough to have faith in it either being true or untrue. Right? Like you seem at least semi-sure.
Yeah, I think it makes the most sense. I mean, like I don't know the math.
Right.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not doing the forefront of the research, but it makes a lot of sense. And if it's something that we found that unifies, the theories that we already have, and it fits with, our understandings that we do already have about nature, that it definitely yields, it should yield our attention.
I guess what I get kind of lost in a little bit is, let's say string theory is legit. We can do everything but prove it. How do we rule out that there aren't other theories that would be more complete? Like,
well, we do that all the time. It's like if they have
or the overlapping, even like maybe string theory is real. It's the truth, but there's other theories that interact with it, and it's not solely like we could have one.
Well,
of these
there are other theories that interlap with it, like brain theory and other stuff like that. Like there are definitely a lot of those that interact as well. And it's like, well, if it's not this, then at least we know that this, and it's still based on the same core concept idea. That the main difference in string theory than what we've known in the past is just the particles part. It's that it's strings instead of particles. That's really the main difference, and just that difference changes how the physics work.
Interacts.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It changes how everything interacts with each other.
I'll be honest though, I'm still like I that is like the basis of it all, but that is the hardest thing for me. I can get a lot of the dimension stuff, but the particles being strings really throws me. I don't know if it's because like you learn it in a different way your whole life, and just that change in perspective is hard, or like part of me is just like feels like that part doesn't make sense to me.
Well, think about it this way. Like right now, even if we were just particles, everything that you're made of, all the particles that are in you, they're constantly vibrating.
Sure, I get that.
Like all the time, constantly vibrating. So, like if you think about like if you look at like a dot that's vibrating, like just from like a bird's eye view up above, and you're seeing it vibrating, extremely fast, it kind of it can look like a string already. It can look like it's making little figure eights and shit like that. Like it's dancing.
Okay.
When you're seeing it from that perspective. So think about it that way, that it's on a one-dimensional level. There is no depth to it. It's just a squiggly vibrating string. And it's not a thing moving around making it. It's just that string.
How about this? So like a string is like straightened out, right? It's
it's like a round curve.
Right, but hear me out. A string straightened out is just a line, right?
Yes.
And all lines are composed of multiple points. That's what makes the line, right?
Yes.
So what I don't get is why the string isn't why the string isn't made of points. Because
it probably is just a terminology thing, for lack of a better term, I guess.
How
they
so?
Probably could have come up with a different word that would mean a line that is not made. It can be made of points, just not particles. So technically, a point is something that you can use to measure, to reference.
Okay, see that. I feel like
it doesn't have to be made to of a thing that's a particle.
Okay, that I feel like I keep getting, like, I'm chipping away at it. I feel like I'm getting good. So, but it has, like, you can't have a string be smaller than a point. That's what I'm stuck on, right?
Well, technically, yeah, we could still we could be able to measure down past that, but we definitely don't have that ability or technology to.
But I guess what I'm trying to make sense is if it's a terminology thing or what. But, like, all right, you have a point. The point is actually a string, but that string still has to be made of points to be a string, even if those points aren't particles. It would still be a point in space. Instead
of saying you have a point and it's a string, think you have a particle, but instead of a particle, it's a string.
Right. Okay.
Because a point really isn't anything.
Right.
A point is like a coordinate. It's a coordinate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the string points make up the string.
Yes.
Okay. I can deal with that.
We can say that. Yeah.
Okay. So to put this in context, all right, how does string theory affect our world? Or what's something we can tie it to affecting, like, a black hole?
Okay, so black holes. So the cool thing about string theory is that it opens up a wide scope of ideas about what happens inside of a black hole.
Specifically black holes, like, because it's everything, right?
I mean, yeah, about a lot of things, but specifically about black holes, because there's so much we don't know about black holes currently. Because of the way gravity interacts with it and our understanding of particle physics, it just doesn't work out. So we can't really explore that idea because we have no correlation between the two.
And it seems like there clearly is something very important about black holes that we don't fully yet understand, right? There's one in every, is it universe?
There's at least one in every universe, every galaxy.
Right. I always get galaxy and universe. So there's one in every galaxy.
At least,
and it's what I find interesting though is, like, pretty much any, like, science theory, it somehow is always tied to how it interacts with the black hole.
Yeah.
Okay, so help me with string theory with it.
So not only should string theory explain whether black holes are consistent with quantum mechanics or not, but it should also tell us that it also tells us we should expect that information is not lost in black holes. And this is cool because that means that the data still exists in some form or possibly in some place.
So the spaghettification, we talked about it a little bit at one point.
Yeah.
So the spaghettification, something goes into the black hole, it's spaghettified, and many people thought that's the end. That's the only way you could delete matter.
Yeah, and there's still talks about it.
Right.
It's
we don't know
that data. It's like whether the question was mostly like whether even if that thing is still there, is it ever going to be the same?
What shape?
So it's not really that thing anymore.
What shape did those particles take? How, throw something. Really, like, it would never be like you throw a hamster, you get a dog or whatever. But trash math. But
that sounds so dope. It's like the space trade.
Yeah, but the particles could come back in any form. Is that part of it?
Well, that was the thing. It's like if the information is still there, then
who knows what?
Yeah, that thing should be fine. Whatever went in there technically could still come out. It's in just where.
Right.
Yeah.
Different galaxy. Is the exit of a black hole white hole?
That is a theory.
Okay. Yeah. It's not.
It's not a thing that exists in our world, but it could possibly exist in a different universe.
Right.
And there are even ideas concerning, the existence of wormholes and stuff like that. And like, that's kind of what a white hole would be like the exit side. It's a theoretical exit side of a black hole. And then the white hole is where, it's the universe, like time moves backwards. And so like it's, ejecting all of this shit out of this black hole. And
so it's black hole into the wormhole, exit white hole.
Yes. Yeah.
That sounds so fun.
Yeah. And you know, and like the even the theory of just like what it would take or mean if a wormhole were to exist. And one of the cooler ideas is that, you know, you could use a black hole or a wormhole as a time machine, or at least, at the very least, you could travel through space at a speed faster than light. And that's by itself incredible.
Right. And depending on where the exit is, you really could like time travel.
Yeah. I mean, you know,
it's very unpredictable. You might.
I mean, technically, you could be going through, you know, different, you know, dimension into, you know, if you're crossing, you know, through the fifth or sixth dimensions, you could be on a different, you know, universe entirely. That's not our own. You could be on a completely different timeline than ours, and you can do some wild shit. But that's all completely theoretical bullshit.
All right. Well, speaking of which, if you had the power for a day to manipulate string theory, and you could what was that dumbass movie? Go back in time, Back to the Future yourself. What would you do? Like, where would you interact with your own timeline at? If you had like one, let's say, let's even make it more specific. An hour. You have an hour. That could get a little too intimate, but you have like an hour or like an afternoon to intersect your own timeline.
I would tell my younger self to stop spending my allowance on drugs and dumb shit. Or, you know,
if you do that, I'm using mine to intersect your timeline and tell you to buy more.
Start telling myself to start putting that in an IRA account or some shit.
You're just playing Pokemon State. You're like 11 years old playing Pokemon Stadium, and you just appear out of nowhere. Your beard's a foot long, like, kid, you gotta stop. And then I'll appear and be like, buy more, buy more. And then we'll wrestle and then poof out of existence.
I'd be traumatized. I definitely wouldn't do more drugs again after that.
Like, damn, this shit was good. I need to get some more of that.
Damn, I need to get some more of that weed.
Yeah. Fuck.
I mean, that wasn't even my first go-to. My first thought was like, do something to like reinforce my first thought was reinforce like my confidence or something, but like I had pretty good confidence when I was a kid, so I don't know.
Especially for me, I started to think of a couple. The only thing you could do like with an hour is like a specific event or like a, you know, choose your own adventure path where like you chose A and you should have chose B. That's kind of hard to choose.
Yeah,
like there's a couple, but I would need very like much of
very much of the mentality that like everything that did happen to you, whether it sucked or not, it made you the person you are today.
Yeah, 100%. Like, there's so many people in recovery that are like, I wish I never did the drugs, man. And it's like, yeah, it might have been fucked up, but like, you wouldn't be the person who regrets it now unless you went through it. Like, you need all the parts of you, all the time parts of you to make the current, you know? You can't live in regret either, you know? So wormhole time machines, huh?
Yeah. Technically it's possible. The worm stuff in general also really cool.
Yeah, I'm just happy we're talking about worms.
Right. And despite our limited knowledge, you know, we can find the wormholes in the dirt if we dig far enough.
Of course.
But the humans aren't big enough to fit through them, and that's our problem. So if we, like I said, so despite our limited knowledge, we can predict a decent amount of behaviors about like wormholes and stuff like that. Like one being the passageway between holes would probably cinch in on itself and close before you could actually travel completely through it because of the sheer gravity from inside. It would be hard to keep it open.
Now, is this related specifically to string theory, like through the perspective of string theory? Is this in general?
If string theory is an idea of how physics works with gravity,
right?
Then yes.
So with the understanding of what we believe is true with string theory, we think it allows, this is an example of why it would be important, because it gives us a framework to consider how a wormhole would function.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So if you're able to hold the passage open with exotic matter or something that had like a negative mass, you could potentially pass through it completely unscathed, because the negative mass would repel the interior of the wormhole to keep it open.
Yeah, I like those words you chose. Those were good. Exotic matter.
That's actually a real thing.
I know. I love it. All right. Well, can you tell me about it more?
So
is
exotic
that
matter,
dark matter?
No, it's completely different.
Okay.
I think in general it's described as having a negative mass. It hasn't been discovered at all yet.
It's a subtractive
theoretical
matter.
thing. Yeah, it'd be a negative mass thing that would. It's not about the matter. It would be a type of matter. It would just that matter has negative mass, which causes everything to repel from it, like things that have mass attract things to them.
Right. Is that, and that would still be different than the absence of matter? It's not that nothing's there. It's something there.
There's a thing there that just has a negative mass.
That's interesting. And that's
a highly theoretical thing.
And that could be something that, for example, changes how gravity functions and could contribute to our lack of understanding of gravity.
Right. Well, technically, if we understand how gravity works, and we would, upon encountering this type of matter, we would understand how it would react, because if we can measure its mass and we realize that it's a negative, we would understand then how it works, because if we understand how gravity works with physics, then we got that in the bag. We just found it, but we understand how it works.
Okay.
That's the cool thing about the unified theory of everything, is that like Einstein described it as reading God's mind.
That's a great description.
Finding the unified theory is like you're reading God's mind, so you're understanding his blueprints and his plans and how things work. And if you have that knowledge to you, then you can start talking about breaking the fifth and sixth dimension. And like they said, that being said, there's still a lot of ideas about where you might end up on the other side of a wormhole. Like I said, you could travel through the fifth or the sixth dimension and wind up in an alternate universe that's similar to our own, or in an inverse dimension where time moves in reverse, like with the white hole. And there's a wild speculative ideas out there, and they're all technically possible until we find the means to prove them wrong.
Right. So string theory, or another theory of everything, is like the holy grail of science.
Absolutely. It would be the crowning achievement of all science. It would be the greatest discovery.
Even more
the greatest
than
achievement.
The human genome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Better than making fire, better than all of those things, the things that would change in our world and our understanding of what's around us would be so significant. It would be the new, BC and, BCE.
Right. But nothing changes inherently by just knowing it. It's what we potentially could discover through knowing it.
Well, if we know it, then it changes the way that we approach, studying it. It does. It would change the way that we would launch rockets. It would change, if we could understand.
Would it, though?
And absolutely.
But we understand the gravity and the things currently, like, if we want to bomb a country today, we know exactly how to get rocket from point A to point B. B. How would cracking string theory or a theory of everything change things?
Now, I do want to say that when I said rockets, I was thinking rockets into space.
No.
But you thought of like missiles.
We're firebombing countries.
Yeah.
We just bombed Syria and Iraq this week.
Cool.
So how could string theory help us bomb people?
Well, for one, it could really change the way that we look at propellants. And, if we got to a point where we understood how gravity better interacts with particles, and we could study it more because we understand it more, we we could get further away from, having to have, the gas propelled rockets and shit like that. Like we would be able to have lighter, state of power that we could get further into space. We could go faster, easier. It would be, potentially less expensive to send, people to Mars and shit like that, or do dumb shit like that.
I'm not, I don't disagree, but I guess the point I'm trying to go at is that all of those potential benefits are theoretical. Like it's what we could learn using it, but it's not just because we understand how the theory of everything works. Things don't inherently change.
Well, you're right. We would have to learn it first, and it's like things wouldn't change right off the bat. But it's like when someone describes to you how to do a new, trade or a new skill or a new thing, then you can suddenly do that thing. You can, you can work within it and teach yourself more, and you can, manipulate that idea.
It would be the biggest cheat code mankind's ever had.
It absolutely would be. It'd be like entering God mode on, your Skyrim. Yeah, you can fuck around with it, and we would be able to unlock different shit, and that's where we could potentially, still, we could unlock the different dimensions of shit and try to figure out like how that works, and
we could be sending our rockets through dimensions into other worlds.
Right.
Yeah,
fuck all those other dimensions.
We could kill
this dimension or die.
Universe. Yeah, and to clarify, those bombs we dropped on Syria were fucked up. The Syrians are my people, man. That's my fam. Dude, I want to go so bad. All right, so everything is made of the vibrating strings, right? That's string theory. Everything is strings. We're just in a yarn world. We're just crocheted into the string world.
It's a little big planet everywhere.
It's like Matrix, but instead of glitchy letters, we're all just in a big crochet piece. It's just someone shaking her strings all day. So why couldn't... I don't even understand this question, I'll be honest. So why can't we pass through solid matter?
So
what the fuck does that mean?
I put that there.
We're not ghosts.
I wanted to talk about it because it's huge. Because if everything's just vibrating strings,
sure,
then theoretically,
why is something solid?
You could vibrate through that thing,
just shimmy on through
without destroying the integrity.
I get what you're
of yourself. It's theoretical that
but we could. That's the thing, is we could, but the displacement and damage we do, right? I mean, if we couldn't at all,
you would be completely fucked. So like usually matter can pass easily through other matter. Think like neutrinos. It's one of the most common types of matter in the universe.
About water and air, right?
Well, I mean, they don't actually pass. They don't pass like directly through you. But like neutrinos are, it's like the particles, the tiny ones beyond the subatomic shit. It's one of the most common types of matter in the universe, and large amounts of them they're passing through you right now, all the time.
Are these the things I've heard? It might not even be them specifically, but I've heard people talk about like the ghost particles, the things that pass through us all day that we don't.
I mean, probably then, yeah.
Yeah. They could be affecting our mind in ways we don't understand yet, right?
Yeah.
Particles moving through us, things radiating from the
and not even just your mind, but like your entire body, all your organs and shit. Like technically, yeah.
I've heard. I mean, most of it I don't attribute that much to, but even like things like cancer could be from, things.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, things radiating from space, that we don't know how they affect, or that. I've heard one person, his theories were particularly fun to read and interesting, and they weren't based on any science at all, but that what if things radiating from space, like what if all of our emotions are, or even thoughts.
Yeah, I've heard that shit before.
Yeah, it's fun to consider, but
that's actually where the term like lunatic comes from.
Luna?
Is the effect of the moon on your brain.
I love it. That was
it mostly had to do with like women's menstrual cycles and shit like that. I think that was a thing.
My last cat was named Luna. I'm a big moon person.
Oh yeah.
I had one more for you. So I think I lost it. I lost it, man. The space radiation just nuked my thoughts out. It was an important thought. I'll come back to it.
You'll come back to it.
It was a really smart idea, though.
It's a really good point you were going to make, I'm sure.
Yeah, let's just. It was
fucking. It's your upcoming thesis statement. Yep. So we also think that most of the matter mass of the universe is some type of dark matter that also passes easily through our type of matter, the type of matter that we're made of.
Now, is that a theory, truth? Where does dark matter
It's
fall?
an idea.
Okay.
We don't know shit about dark matter.
Okay.
We have ideas about it, but it's all theoretical bullshit.
Because we can't measure it.
Right. We can't measure it, can't see it, can't really. We've only just had a couple instances where we've been able to like detect that like it's actually there. Like we know it's there. You just don't know what it is.
So when they guess these percentages of how much of it exists, is that based off like mathematical formulas of what they think would make sense?
It's based of like what our observable universe is and the percentage of what we don't see.
That's so wild, man.
Yeah.
To just be like, to no discredit, but to just be guessing percentages of things we can't perceive yet. It's wild.
Yeah. It's hella weird.
Cool. Yeah.
So even the very familiar types of matter, like electrons and positrons, protons, neutrons, helium nuclei, they pass through familiar matter to some degree, which is why transmission electron microscopes and neutron scattering experiments and proton radiation therapy, that's why they all work. So like technically, yes, you could definitely pass, yourself through solid matter, but both the matter itself and you would have to be like vibrating at the same rate, which would cause you to overheat and like die.
And frequency, I would imagine. Even if you were vibrating at the same rate, you'd have to be perfectly either in sync or exactly opposite. I guess it's one of the two, so you could shuffle on through each other like puppets.
It's like how the Japanese honeybees group up around a hornet and they vibrate until they cook it.
Oh,
have you ever seen that?
No,
that's like a method of attack they do. They make a big ball around a hornet and they trap them in it and they like vibrate all together. Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
They cook roasts from the inside. So you're better off using a hammer or a sawzall or something to smash your way through the fucking wall. Fuck that wall anyway.
Yeah, it'd be too hard to vibrate through. I pictured
use a
like,
fucking drill like Homeboy did in that video.
Yeah, I pictured like two puppets on strings. Like their strings are gonna get tied unless they're vibrating through each other just right.
Or even, I mean, yeah,
stupid marionette puppets, those stupid fuck puppets.
I'm picturing. I mean, also there's a thing in Fringe where they do this, and like the dude gets stuck in the fucking wall. They're like breaking into a bank, and they're using a machine that like vibrates the wall so that it's like becomes like lucid enough that you can pass through it, which is
that's fun. Yeah,
but it's cool, and
yeah.
But the guy gets stuck in the wall, and like you would be mixing your own molecules with, those of the fucking wall, whatever it's made of. And you're fucking around with some shit that you don't need to be fucking around with.
Now, I could see you being an evil scientist. Let's assume
I would love to have the funding to be an evil scientist.
Let's assume you're a villain. This new house you got, this is your evil lair. You have your lab. What kind of, if you had like full Fringe capacity, resources, money, whatever, knowledge to do a crazy experiment of your choice or to create some, is there things you would want to do?
I definitely want to make LSD.
Well, we can do that. I know people
to make good LSD.
What about other stuff?
I mean, maybe.
What about, fuck, I forget the initials. It's just some names. But, I mean, shit, some of the bath salt chemicals are hallucinogens also. You can just,
I'm good on bath salts.
It's different than you would think, though. It's really, you can, when I say bath salts, it's more of like a catch-all for like psychoactive compounds.
Okay. Maybe, I'm down with some psychotropic shit, man. Let's get fucked up.
But you're an evil villain scientist.
Okay,
You could do way
here's
more.
The thing,
you could have a ray blaster. You could be.
You're the one that said fringe. So here's what I'm thinking. So with psychotropic drugs, at least by the theory of the show, you can like get people to like travel through like shit with their mind and like go and like speak with the dead kind of shit and like do wild shit. That would be one. That's conjuration magic kind of shit.
Bump it up a notch.
Science.
Like, of course, we all want drugs. Like, I would want some DMT heroin split compound. But what would you go for? Like,
but what would I do with it is the thing. You interrupted me on that one.
I did.
So definitely talking with or finding a way to unlock memories and like get into the inside of people's like. To see the way that other people think, I guess, to see their mind palace kind of thing.
Oh, dude.
I think that's it's so weird because it's like there's so many things that are so personal to each of us, like just the way that we process information. And there's no way to really communicate it in a clear and concise way. There's ways to get that point across, but I think there are so many subtleties that are so unique to each person. That understanding the way that a person thinks and like how they're absorbing, if you have like really, really smart people and like, the people that can like learn multiple languages really quickly and shit like that, if you could figure out what's going on in their head, then you can use that information to, give to other people and shit like that. And that's probably not even on like that far from like what we can already do. But the other one for sure would be like multiple, like alternate universe shit. I would love to like look for alternate universe shit and like try to find what else could be out there. Like different dimensional stuff would be, one thing for sure. But like if I could find a way to, if I was smart enough to find a way to work into the alternate dimensional thing, that would be that's my goal, my dream. That would be beautiful.
Meaning
to even fuck with that kind of
ultimate. Do tell. I don't know.
If I had a lab full of shit and people that could help me, that would keep me on the forefront of this kind of study, I would love it. That would be great.
And to like explore the infinite universes.
Yeah.
There's no more. You'd be like
just travel through it. Just fucking just see the shit.
Would you
see the shit that no one's ever seen before.
Would you conquer or would you explore? You're an adventurer.
I would not. Yeah, I'm an adventurer. I wouldn't be a conqueror.
There's no more worlds to conquer.
Because those worlds would be just as hard to conquer as this one is. And it's like, I don't want to fucking conquer this world. There's nothing. There's no fun in that. Everyone wants to kill you. Come on. It's like being the Afro Samurai with the #1 headband. Everyone's trying to kill you.
I have mixed feelings on conquering, but dude, you kind of like fucked me up there for a minute. I really like the idea, like the phrase came to my mind, invading your mind palace, or the idea of just being able to like, not even like, but I like the idea of it potentially being hostile. Like you could go through, like rifling through someone's memories, exploring, like kicking
Charles Xavier.
Yeah, kicking down the doors of their mind palace to find the things that are hidden. But I also like the idea of like drugs, like creating the ultimate form of empathy where like you're like a liquid empathy. You could share all your memories and experience with another person, like all the mind palaces of the world conjoined, and you could like broadcast it. Like you could, if you could like crystallize that form of empathy and be able to dose it to someone else to instantly
smoke that shit.
Yeah, but you could instantly like understand a person entirely, all the good and bad in it. There'd be so many misunderstandings.
Yeah,
it'd be I want an evil lab now.
Could potentially end the world hating each other. But then you'd have to, people would have to, consent to doing it or using it.
It depends on how insidious this lab really is. What if you dose the world?
If I'm really an evil scientist, I would force people to I would force them to take a dosage of something that ended racism. Sure, I'm down with it.
Yeah. I think that's called
that
poison.
Would be, it's called poison. But if they stop hating each other, I'm down with that.
Yeah, like an empathy.
If it stops the stupid bullshit that's not necessary,
God, it'd be so fun to make inventions like that.
I don't know about making inventions, but I could potentially still have a wood shop in this apartment, which is...
Yeah, we'll start with carpentry and work up.
Yeah. That's basically like an evil lab. Call me Dr. Frankenstein. I'm going to build a chair. I'm going to build a chair out of 2 old chairs.
I'll draw a picture on it.
It'll just be a big chair. I'm just going to nail them to each other.
Oh, shit. Dude, that Andre, did you see those pictures of Andre the Giant's chair?
Yeah.
So good. All right, so we got string theory. We kind of understand a little bit on how its framework can help us understand things like black holes or things in the galaxy. What about how does it work with the creation of the universe?
So here's another cool thing that I learned from the Michio Kaku. So using string theory, we can build a model of what happened before the Big Bang, which we don't have right now. And there's no way of measuring or seeing that, but we can build a model of that because it shows us the existence of the multiple universes, like the multiverse. And it's commonly believed now by many theoretical physicists that the beginning of our universe, like the Big Bang, it was caused by the collision of 2 other universes, or even just the fissioning of 2 universes. And what that means is, like, not only do we, understand how our universe was formed, but then we could also understand why it was formed.
And that's where the why and how of the formation of our universe is where a lot of God theory or justification stuff comes in.
Yeah.
That an intelligent being had to have designed our universe from the start, and then there's the arguments of, but who designed the being that designed it, all those things.
Yeah, and there's always going to be the God of the gaps, and where, wherever you can, find the information of like, well, but we found the explanation for this. This explains this, and then it's say, okay, but God, made this so, or, but what about, why this works like this? But that's God, that did that. And then you say like, no, but we understand why this happened now too. And they say, oh, well, who created all of the universes then? And it was God. And it's like, you keep backing up, and, it's like, we're finding information. Like, right. You see the pattern of where we're finding this information, and we're seeing how, this unfolds. And it's not to say that there isn't a God, but like, if that's what you're harping on and you're just saying, well, but God, and it's like, that's not helping to find the new information. You're stopping and you're saying, but I'm happy with this, happy with knowing that God is the one that made this, or God made the Big Bang, even if you were to say that. But it's like,
right.
But we can see that it wasn't, though. So, they're not helping to build with that. That's my main
that's
critique on the church,
where faith comes in. But a lot of the God arguments come at the creation of the universe. What I do find interesting, though, to play devil's advocate a little bit, is that with, let's say, string theory or ideas on the creation of the universe, even from a scientific perspective, it kind of requires some amount of faith in science to believe that it happened away. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain amount of like faith or trust we have to have regardless of what our perspective is on it. Like,
that is true.
Do you feel strongly like that you think it is one? Like, do you have, it's different than religious faith, but faith that it happened one way or another?
Are you mean like in a specific way?
Yeah. 'Cause
I have ideas that I like. I can't really, no, I can't really say that. I have ideas that I like.
Yeah.
And I can see where they're, when they come up with new information, I form it into, my vision of the world.
Sure.
So it's not to say that I don't have faith in the science that's being found, or, what all these physicists are finding, but that there are still things that are unanswered. And I like to think of my own ideas, even though I don't do the math and I don't do the shit. I like to think of my own things that fill the gaps, and it's just for fun.
Yeah, it's not
just a cool way of thinking of it.
If you did the same thing and you were hardcore married to those ideas, that's like psychosis. But to play with it's a challenge. It's fun. But what I guess I get somewhat not annoyed, but I have a certain sense of mistrust is when you hear, whether it's a scientist or just a person in general, when they're like married to specific concepts without full proof. Because for me, that it's like, I don't know, it lacks a certain amount of credibility if you're super sure something happened a certain way and you don't have any proof. I just think things should often be framed less certain sometimes.
Yeah. Even, and you and I both talked about this, the idea of like the potential of there being a God.
Yeah.
That made everything and designed everything the way it should be. Like that's always a possibility.
Yeah. We can't know.
There's no real reason for us. There's no evidence that points to us ever thinking that or giving us reason to think that. But right. I mean, if you're going to point out, give the option of like, but what if there's this all powerful thing that did this on purpose? Then like, I guess technically, yeah, maybe, but like, so like, it's not
unknowable.
Yeah. There's no way to prove it or prove it wrong. So
yeah, it's
not a theory by any means. It's not, any scientific by any standard.
Right.
So that's why science ignores it.
Yeah.
But I think that it would be, the audacity of someone to believe that, for certain 100%, they personally can say there is no God.
Right. Like that's equally as foolish in the uncertainty of like, I will always like proclaim atheism, but I know in reality it's unknowable. But there's a certain, it's like a social thing. It's a vibe you give off when you add agnostic to it or not.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I think atheism is the right perspective to have. I mean, to call what we think on that, because agnosticism, I think, is generally identified as like they don't care to decide. I mean, I could be wrong. It's all just bullshit terminology, anyways. But
that's the vibe.
The idea that's
off,
like I'm not giving energy into the thought that there is a God that's doing this because I have no reason to. It's not that I'm throwing the idea away. I just don't have any reason to placate this idea.
See, for me, that's the social implication of it. But the reality, I think by pure definition, it's just agreeing that it is neither known nor known.
It's
but
fair.
I don't like that. I don't know. It's too ambiguous for me. Like if I'm telling someone I'm atheist, there's a point to me telling them that, or else we wouldn't be having that discussion, right? It's a great way to say fuck you to someone.
Don't try to talk to me about religion. I really don't want to get into this conversation with you about
right.
about going to your church.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into the meat and potatoes.
The meat and all the potatoes.
Now I'm hungry. All right. 10 dimensions at least. What the fuck's going on? Are we going to break them down, or how are we doing it?
Yeah, we'll break them down a little bit. So first of all, the 10 dimensions thing comes from, it's really hard to describe the math because I don't know the math, and how to describe it properly. But basically the reason why 10 dimensions is a thing is because after doing the formula to the equation that makes, string theory work, there is a constant that has to be a certain number. And they found that it has to be, at one point it was 26. And then they added in a different piece of the equation that was missing, and that came down to 10. There has to be 10, at least 10 dimensions for this to be true. And there could be more. It could be, different numbers that work, but for sure 10 works.
See,
no less than that.
This whole part throws me so much, because what if as we learn more, like it went from 26 to 10, what if as we learn more, like it becomes so compounded and exponentially complicated, maybe all we need is 5 and it still tells the same story.
Maybe it does.
Right.
Then we change our theory then.
God, this is fun.
That's the fun part about the science though, is like when we realized that we were wrong about something else, that instead of thinking about it like we realized we were wrong, think about it like we learned something new.
Right.
We've still made progress.
Why wouldn't it be an infinite?
It could. But the main reason that most people focus on the 10-dimensional thing is, one, you need that constant of 10. That's key, that you need that constant of 10 for it to work. There could be infinite dimensions, but our conceptual understanding of it, like everything that could possibly happen in our kind of similar timeline and in multiple, like in other like origin timelines, and everything happens within that. It's not conceptually possible to even begin to describe or talk about what happens beyond that.
So basically,
because we have everything that could be and ever will be, but what happens beyond that? Where do you even go?
Yeah.
You're talking about poetry at that point.
Right. It really did sound like it was getting there. So basically 10 is because it tells the story of what is trying. It's a describe, like it describes everything that
it's the minimum necessary, and it's enough that it's the most that we can understand.
Okay. All right. So we got 10. I can work with 10. So
when someone mentions the different dimensions, we tend to think of things like the parallel universes and alternate realities that exist parallel to our own. However, the reality of dimensions and how they play a role in the ordering of our universe is actually very different. And to keep it simple, dimensions are the different facets of what we perceive to be in reality, or perceive to be reality at all. They're coordinates that can help us locate things in space and time. We are immediately aware of the 3 dimensions that surround us on a daily basis, those that define the length, the width, the depth of all the objects in our universes. And that's the X, Y, and the Z axes, respectively.
We can grasp those. Those are easy.
Yeah. So the first dimension, one-dimension things, it's, as we talked about before, it's what gives us the length, the x-axis. It's a good description of a one-dimensional object is a straight line, which only exists in terms of length. It has no other discernible qualities. And that's the string, is the one-dimensional line.
It's like the face of a playing card.
Yeah. When you add it to the second dimension, the y-axis or height, then you get an object that becomes the 2-dimensional shape, like a square. And that's when you really start to see them as coordinates. Like our latitude and longitude measurements work that way.
Right.
So when you think about the dimensions as coordinates, I think that really helped me a lot to understand.
Yeah, me too.
How it works. The third dimension involves depth, the z-axis, and that gives us objects in a sense of area and a cross-section. The perfect example of this is a cube, which exists in 3 dimensions and has a length, width, and depth, and hence it has volume. Beyond these 3 dimensions lie the 7 dimensions which are not immediately apparent to us. And they can still be perceived, though, as having a direct effect on the universe and reality as we know it.
Yeah. This just popped in my head. So if you're looking at a map of the world and you wanted to describe a point in the ocean, you have your X and Y, you get to that point, you could use Z to have that point 100 feet under the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it.
Or in the sky, for that matter.
Right.
Yeah, same idea. So scientists believe... Minus. Yeah, exactly. So scientists believe that the 4th dimension is time, or at least that's what it would be to us. The temporal dimension governs the properties of all known matter at any given point. So along with the other 3 dimensions, knowing an object's position in time is essential to plotting its position in the universe. The other dimensions are where the deeper possibilities come into play, and explaining their interaction with the others is where things get really tricky for physicists. And me.
Yeah.
I only have a very basic understanding of what the fuck I'm talking about.
The whole time, I get it's a temporal dimensions. It's not exactly the same as the other ones, but it kind of feels like a fucky move to have time as a dimension in and of itself. I get why we need it.
If you think about it, if you think about it not as time, you think about it as, if you think of it as a spatial dimension, one of the videos that we watched, you were watching the other day, explained it as like, if you looked at yourself in the 4th dimension, you would see like a long tube person that starts at when you were a baby and ends, or when you were, not even baby, when you were an embryo, and ended when you were old and shriveled up and dying.
God, that's so fucked to think of it that way.
Yeah, like if you think about it, like it's a long stretch.
Right.
Of through. So if you think about like the way that I got into understanding the 4th dimension was, if you think about the 3rd dimension and you think about like what time means, is like it's a passing of moments. It's a passing of, micro, measurable moments of time. So if you take each frame of that, like if you have like a GIF or something and you have like a certain number of frames in that thing, you can play them like a video, but it's just made up of individual, segments.
Yeah, stop motion.
Yeah, so 4th dimension is just a series of these segments that make the entire history of our universe.
The flip book of our stupid lives.
Right.
4D. Now, I think we talked about it briefly another time, but the theories believe we experience time linearly. Linearly, yes. That's what's believed, right?
In string theory, yes.
Yeah, and pretty much in any theory.
There are other ones. There was like the growing box theory or whatever that was like it's constantly expanding as we go, and there's other ones that are like as we go forward, the past is irrelevant. The past doesn't exist anymore. It's just always the present. There are different perspectives of looking at it, but mostly yes.
See, this may be just like my own brain damage, or like maybe being too playfully abstract, but I don't feel certain we experience time on a straight line. Like I don't know that. I get that's how it's perceived, but like even just like thinking to a memory, like how do we know we're not re-experiencing that in an alternate way? That time isn't overlapping, or that, you know what I mean? Like I know this is like bullshit. Like I get that,
in a way you can. So actually, that gets into what the 5th and 6th dimensions are.
Okay,
at least in string theory. So
this is where I get lost.
Yeah,
to be clear.
So keep in mind what you were just talking about. How like time can interlapping and whatnot. So
it's like windows. Like you have a memory, and it's like a window into the other timeline.
yeah,
Like I just don't always feel certain. Like you're always going straight through time.
right.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking it like, think of it this way: you're constantly going straight through time in our universe. But if there are other universes that intersect with ours,
Okay.
then it would be, it's in the fifth and sixth dimensions are where the possibility of the other worlds arise. And if you could see on through to the fifth dimension, you could see a universe or like others that are slightly different from our own that would give us a means of measuring the similarity and differences between our world and other possible ones. So that what that means is that you could catch a glimpse into the other universe, and that could explain like deja vu. That could explain what the fuck is it called, like ghosts and shit like that. Like that's what that means to me. It's like you can explain like apparitions of shit that aren't there because
I really like that.
there's a crossing of timelines that just happen to be in the right place, and you happen to be perceptive to it.
The strings were vibrating left when they should have been right as the timelines overlap.
Yeah, or like, when you're like thinking of a song on your way home from work, and or as you walk to your car and you get in your car and it's the first song that comes up on the radio or something like that. Like weird goofy shit like that could be explained in that way. Where like in a similar side dimension that's parallel, almost parallel to our own, that crosses or got close to ours in that moment, like just a couple seconds prior, you heard that song in that dimension, but you didn't hear it yet. You had to wait until you got in your car and you turned on the radio and then you heard it. But it was in your head before.
The station, to it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like you're all, wouldn't it be terrifying if we conquer string theory and we know these things well enough? Wouldn't it be terrifying to, like, in manipulating the dimensions? Time and the dimensions, what, like, the effects that could ripple, or how much, like, if somebody could control that, they could alter so much of a person's existence.
That
or
was
everyone's existence.
That was one of the main worries that Einstein had, was that by going about the route of his work, that someone could figure out how to go back in time, which would cause chaos. Means history means nothing. You can't write books that, like that, because it's always being changed. So what we can perceive is that what's his name? Hawking had the idea that he said something about if time travel is ever a possibility, if it could ever be a possibility, why don't we have time traveling tourists? Already. Like you would think that at every major event, there'd be all these people from the future that are trying to see it and shit like that. So maybe that means that we just can't pass into the into the past, or that means that we all die out before we figure it out.
Right, because then the dead would never be dead. People love their dead loved ones so much. Like, if
you could keep people alive, you're saying, through going back and... Yeah.
No one would ever be dead. It would be defeating death, which kind of makes me feel like it's not possible.
Yeah.
Now, so Einstein also had great guilt about the bombs, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Dude, what a terrible weight to have to carry.
Oh my God.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, he wasn't the only one carrying it, but... Right. But oh my God, what a weight.
For doing, like, he was doing things with... Many of them were doing things with completely different intentions. To have your work perverted in that kind of way would be horrifying.
So to continue with the dimension, so we talk about the fifth and the sixth. So the sixth is like, if the fifth is, where you could, if you look into it, you could see different universes, right? So in the sixth, you would see a plane of possible worlds, not just, a couple of different lines. You would see a plane of multiple lines where you could compare and position all the possible universes that start with the same initial conditions as this one, which is the Big Bang. In theory, if you could master the fifth and the sixth dimension, you could travel back in time or go to different futures. That's in theory.
And this is where one of the tricks to visualize it would be in time folding. Is this?
Yeah. So if you think about it in the way that you're skipping, you're finding a way to overstep not just, a spatial, boundary, but through a temporal boundary, is a completely, you're folding time and space to your whim, which it just seems absurd. It seems unnatural, but could be technically possible.
Yeah. The folding helps me a little bit because this is where I get really confused. This is the description I was just reading. The higher dimensions 5 through 10 are hard to see. It might be easier to represent these higher dimensions as folds, i.e. if you use a piece of paper to represent a plane and you fold that piece of paper into two, every point on the paper has a twin that coexists on the same x and y coordinates. You're creating alternate axes.
Right.
So you're like
so
fucking with the curvature of space-time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild shit. It doesn't get any easier going on.
And this all relates to like with through the fifth and sixth dimension, you have like the causality is in effect and alternate realities, right? Yeah. If you fold your plane over, one axis is affecting the others, and there's this alternate world that could be intersecting at different points. Yeah,
correct.
Okay. This is hard for me, but getting there.
Multiple, many different worlds intersecting.
Can you explain causality better? Like I've heard it explained. I don't fully get it. It's things affecting other things.
Yeah.
But do we know, like...
It's you're saying causality would be like the cause of... this works because of that.
I always thought it was more of an effect thing. Like the causality is the effects of something doing something to something else.
No. Now I don't know.
I know. Now I gotta do... Because my understanding is like, all right, you're in the fifth and sixth dimensions, you're altering planes, your folds, whatever. Changing one timeline is affecting the others.
Causality is literally, it's just the relationship of cause and between cause and effect. It's the principle that everything has a cause.
I thought it's the principle of causing something affects something.
Well, yeah, it's the principle that everything has nothing just happens. It doesn't just happen. It means that it has influenced something happen because something else happened.
Nothing happens in a vacuum or in a static situation. It's all the effect of a cause.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So that would mean if you're moving in the fifth dimension, you're affecting other things.
Yes.
You're affecting the other axes and points.
Yeah. In some way or another, you are causing issues.
Not necessarily
issues. Yeah, you're causing changes. Yeah.
It's the butterfly flaps its wings bullshit.
Yeah.
A butterfly flaps its wings in China. No. That's from something. I can't remember what the fuck.
It was called The Butterfly Effect, and it was starring Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah, there's a song, too. That movie, was that a good movie? I know I've watched it.
I remember it being a lot scarier than we thought it was going to be when I was a kid.
Yeah, I feel like that was one of those
parts of it.
Overhyped ones, but I don't really remember it.
I remember liking it when I was a kid. I haven't seen it since.
What about Pi?
The second one and the third one were awful.
Oh, they made sequels?
Yeah, they made sequels.
No, they shouldn't have let that causality happen. Did you watch Pi?
Life of Pi?
No, it's just Pi.
No.
You would very much
it would be no to either one of those questions, but
Pi is an important one.
Okay.
Like that Candyman song was Ricky's song.
Yeah.
Pi is a Ricky movie. Like,
all right.
Legit.
All right, bet.
Above Hannibal. Hannibal's my thing, but Pi, watch this week Ricky thing.
Now it's important that we're talking about these dimensions because technically in the fifth or sixth dimension, I could step out of my room and into your room and go pet that cat behind you.
She's not that cute.
She's really adorable.
She's fucking cute.
It's fucking beautiful.
She
actually looks like a mini version of my cat, and it's wonderful.
They really do look like cousins. She's actually being really good today because she got her last vaccine shots today.
Nice.
So she can't get
She's all
rabies.
tired and shit, yeah.
Yeah, she's sore when I pick her up, so she's just laying down, being chill.
Good.
Which is good because she keeps biting me. Glad she doesn't have rabies. I'll be foaming at the mouth by now.
All right, so we're talking about the fifth and the sixth.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the seventh.
Wait. Hold on. So I get the fifth. What's the difference in the sixth? This is I lose it here, man. I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fold. 6, what?
So fifth. Think. You're already thinking in the sixth. So the fifth would just be that you would see, that there exists a multiple or a alternate universe or a multitude of universes. That's just exists within the fifth.
I'm sorry.
In the sixth,
can you say that one more time?
In the fifth dimension, that's where you would see that you have other universes. In the sixth is where you could, you would see that all of these universes, you could see all of the universes that have the same initial conditions as ours. So and you would be able to move between them within the six.
Okay. I kind of get that. This all goes back to the probability plane kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read this section? This helped me a little bit.
Go for it.
You do yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the seventh dimension, this is where you would have access to the possible worlds that start with different initial conditions. Where ours was like the Big Bang, this means that like in the fifth and sixth, the initial conditions were the same as ours and the subsequent actions were different. But here, everything is different from the very beginning of time. So that means that whatever, any and all possible beginnings of the universe happen within the seventh dimension. There are timelines, there are universes that stretch, in through that also intersect with each other. But within those, there's that would be any and all possible initial conditions.
I just don't get how we make the jump on 6 and 7. Like, I'm looking at the tree analogy, and I don't get how. I see how the dimensions can branch off into other things, right?
So here's how I generally like to think about it. So if you think about, let's go back to back to basics. So you have a point. That point has 0 dimensions.
Right.
When you have a line, that's 1 dimension. When you have a shape, that's 2 dimensions. You have 2 intersecting lines. You have the second dimension. When you have the third dimension is when you have the 3 that are all at right angles to each other, kind of thing.
At the depth.
You have your depth. When you have the fourth dimension is where you take that moment and you condense it down to a point and you make a line of those points.
It's a moving shape.
Yeah, it's a moving with which each thing of the third dimension is a point along that path.
Yeah.
So then that's the fourth dimension. The fifth dimension is where you have multiple intersecting lines. That's your alternate universes. The sixth dimension is being able to go from one to the other. That's where you have that'd be like if you have
just the cross.
Yeah,
like
more or less. Yeah.
If you fold the planes, the fifth is where the fold touches.
Yeah, crosses with the other dimensions.
Right.
And so then you would be able to say like you have spaces, you have like shapes within the fifth dimension. If you think about like the fifth dimension is to the second dimension. So like if you go from going from 4 to 5 is like going from 1 to 2. Because you have a line and then you're adding lines that intersect.
Okay.
In both of those.
Yeah.
So in the 6 it would be the same as adding. You have, from the second to the third. So you have from the 5th to the 6th, you're adding depth. You're adding multiple equations into that.
I kind of get that more. They're crossing over at 5. 6 is like when the world expands. You're going into the new. Yeah.
So if you then take that and condense it like we did with the third dimension, and you make a line out of it, how we did with the fourth dimension, that's when you have the seventh dimension. So you have everything that could happen within our universal structure, within our plane of universes that coincides with all the possibilities that we could face within our universe. That all happens within the sixth dimension. What could be possible outside of our own universe, all the possibilities of every universe, that's when you start getting into the seventh dimension. And it's not all of them in the seventh dimension, but you start seeing alternate options in the seventh dimension. That's where you take the entire sixth dimension and everything inside of it, you condense it down to a point and put it along a line like we did with the third dimension into the fourth.
Okay, so for my understanding, the fifth, these are probably bad ways to describe it, but this is how I can kind of get in my head. Fifth, we're at the fold, right? They're touching. Sixth, we're entering the new. Seventh is when we leave and we're outside of the origins and laws of our universe.
Yes.
And we could be into the new origins and laws of a new universe.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So within the seventh is where you're going to have a line that would be the beginning and end of everything possible in our universe. But then the eighth dimension is where it gives us, again, it's a plane of these different dimensions. Fold. Yeah, so it's not just our it's not just our timeline of everything possible. It's alternate timelines of everything possible.
Right. Like if we left our universe into the seventh and we're into the new, going to 8 is exponentially more universes.
So that's where we could have multiple different things that we could see. We would see that there are multiple different lines that intersect, once again making a shape, making a plane. That's where it's like where 8 is to the seventh dimension as 2 is to the first dimension. If you think about it that way. Okay. That's how it works for me. Ninth dimension would be the, going from the second to the third, then, where you have everything possible within the frame of all limitations of every probability. It's like you're talking about just data at this point. It's not really imaginable because we have no comprehension of like what that means. So
I feel like we even lose that at 6.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah. We do. So we lose that that ability to even comprehend that, but that's everything possible ever from any start point of all time, any capability of anything that ever had happened or would happen, could happen, that all happens inside of 9. And that's different. That means like different laws of physics, different laws of nature, all of that is included inside of that.
Right. And
then the 10th dimension is just where you take all of that and then you condense it down to a point again.
And it just that way.
You can make a line of those points, and that would be the 11th dimension. And then you repeat the process
Now, to clarify, when you say point in this case, that point is really a string, right?
No, in this case, the point is actually a point. It's a finite.
It's a coordinate.
Point. Yeah, it's a coordinate.
Okay. I do feel like I'm getting hold of more of this each time we discuss it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So like we can't understand anything, especially beyond like 10. That just doesn't make sense. There's no reason to think about it because it's the natural limitation of what we conceive in terms of dimensions. And the existence of the additional 6 dimensions, which we can't perceive, it's necessary for string theory and to exist in order for consistency in nature to be true. Within the string theory, here's how was I going to say this? It's easier to think of it in my mind as the coordinates and like relating it to the 3-dimensional thing. Like that makes the most sense to me. If you're trying to think of it as a spatial place and I feel like that makes it harder because you're still
like how I've been doing.
Yeah, because you're having to picture it.
That's the only way I can get it, man.
I think to picture it makes it so much harder because there's no I mean, like even thinking about like just the expanse of our space, of our observable space, it's so beyond comprehension. Dude, that distance, that understanding. So it doesn't make sense to think about it as a visual, reference like that.
Dude, you just set off something in my head. Like I can learn by hearing, right? Like audio, I learn very well. Podcasts, video, even if I'm not paying attention, hearing things help me a learn. But even in hearing stuff, I'm always picturing things. I'm a visual learner, even if it is audio based. And I think what you just said, like picturing the expanse of the universe, like I'm so interested in all this, but I've never been as passionate nearly in the same way you are. And I think I'm realizing a lot of that is because I can't picture things. Like the analogy of there are more universes than there are grains of sand on Earth. When I first heard that, I forget which scientist.
It was more galaxies.
Yeah. See, I can't even get that right. But hearing that alone had more of an impact on my understanding of it than just to hear that it is infinite.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But having some sort of visual reference is what makes it so much easier for me. And that's why it's so hard to get the dimensions. And I think that's why my level of passion for it doesn't match yours. I think it's so cool, but I can't get it the same way. Yeah.
That's interesting.
I didn't realize how much of that came back to like a learning technique.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I think I was going to say something else about the dimensional thing. But like, so the fact that we can only perceive the 4 dimensions that we do, it can be explained by it's one of 2 different mechanisms. So either the extra dimensions are compactified on a very small scale, or else our world may live on a 3-dimensional submanifold thing, which I'll get into in a minute. But like the big dimensions and the small dimensions, there's going back and forth between that, where you had mentioned earlier something about the a string being 1-dimensional and what that means, and so think about it this way, in a way that in the way that I've seen it described before is like, if you think about like a string, literally a string, just like a physical piece of string, you see it from a distance. What do you see? You just see a line, right? It looks 1-dimensional from a distance because that's your frame of reference.
I kind of get that, but I kind of don't.
No, hold on to me. Hold on. Let me get further in here. But with if you were an ant crawling along that string, it would appear much, much bigger.
It's 3D then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looks like one-dimensional from our perspective, but it could be much bigger. So when you were asking earlier if strings are, how they only have one dimension, well, it's a frame of reference. So if we look at it like, well, maybe there's more dimensions to this that could be a secret in unlocking the fifth and sixth dimension kind of shit.
The perspective.
It's different dimensions that are they're coiled up so small in spaces that we can't perceive.
And this was that coil theory you were...
Yeah. So that's what I was talking about. Like sometimes it seems like it's such a grandiose thing, but like sometimes they could be hidden in plain sight kind of thing. Not even in plain sight because it's not plain sight at all. It's know, so beyond microscopic and subatomic that we just have no possible way of seeing it yet.
That kind of goes to my concept of like the dimensions overlapping more than we realize too. It might not necessarily be overlapping as much as intertwined or coiled or whatever.
Yeah, and it could very well affect so much of our day-to-day life that we just have no idea. It's a fun idea, I think. It's a really cool way to perceive it and a good way to look at it. It's definitely interesting, and it's a lot of fun to think of. I guess the idea is just space and time being something that's manipulatable and something that's, I guess not easy to control, but something that we could still possibly control and we could still possibly make sense of in some way or another. And like I was saying before, so the idea is that like they're either compactified or they're huge, or there is another theory that our world may live on this three-dimensional submanifold that corresponds to a brain. And a brain is like a plane of space or time, space and time. At least the way that I understand it.
Say it one more time for me.
A brain is like a area, it's like a plane of space and time. At least that's the way that I was made to understand it. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but it's BRANE, not brain like we have in our head.
Yeah.
So and that's on which all the particles besides gravity are restricted to that brain. That's actually called brain theory, and it works alongside. It can work alongside string theory, stuff like that. It's just a little bit different. Like you're talking about earlier, there's different theories that go along with it. And, Gucci Mane even talked about it. He said, first you get a name, then you get a number, then you get some brain in the front seat of the Hummer.
I can't believe you said that. Son of a bitch, Gucci. Fuck, man, dude. How does string theory interact with free will? That's what I wonder most. Like I see how the possibility of manipulating dimensions or fully understanding string theory, if it was the correct theory, how we could change so much, right? But let's say whether we fully understand it or we had the ability to manipulate it, where does like free will or destiny, predetermination, causality, where does it all come into play? Like I feel like nothing matters even more.
In a way it does and it doesn't. See, because I think it's then when you're looking at such a grand scale of things, it it starts to get relative. So within our own universe, you have free will, and like you and I have talked about before, you have free will barring the laws of physics. You can't obstruct the laws of physics, but within that you have free will.
To what extent? If string theory was real, how do we know? Right? Like that's the thing is you would still be abiding by the laws of physics. Even if you're jumping through universes and shit, you're still abiding by the laws of physics. But if it was real, we wouldn't know the impact someone else could be having on our free will at any given time. by manipulating our reality.
I mean, that's
perception.
true. That's true at all times, anyways. That you don't know what someone else's actions are doing to your free will.
Yeah, but
just like Jacob in Lost.
Yeah, but with
your
full string theory capabilities, it's to a much greater extent. No?
Now, give me an example.
We're able to manipulate string theory, right?
Yeah. We're able to manipulate space and time based on the physics that are allowed to us by string theory.
Right. Yeah. What if other people are fucking with your life directly through time? Or they're just their actions, not even like a malicious thing, just actions. The butterfly wing shit. They're changing shit, and timeline and the axes are intersecting with your timeline, and you're in a timeline where we don't understand string theory yet. You're just being affected by the causality of other people's decisions or choices in ways that we can't perceive.
I mean, I feel like that would be fucked. But I still go back to the argument that I feel like that's still happening every day. That the choices that you can make are being affected by, a group of people called Congress.
Yeah, the first thing that came to my mind is living in a country where they're bombing somewhere you don't want to be in the country that's bombing someone, but you live in that reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that's just you didn't get to choose that. We didn't get to vote on that.
Yeah,
it's just a thing that happened.
And I definitely believe in free will. I'm more challenging it, but I do feel like with string theory, there's so like with the capability of manipulating space and time with it, there is so much. I feel like there could be a lot less room for free will in the way we experience free will now.
I mean, I can see where you're looking at it that way, but I think that alternately that also opens up our abilities of free will, because now we would say that we're restricted from that possibility because that's not even a choice that we have, that we understand. But
that was a good thought. I liked what you did there, but it depends on who has control of it.
Right.
It's all a power dynamic.
But technically, if it's a thing that technically anyone could do, because it's a law of physics. Well, it's a law of physics. That means that.
But you would need some sort of tech to be the gatekeepers of time and space. You would need some sort of means to manipulate that. I would assume, unless
maybe not.
It's like a power we evolve into having.
It may be a thing that is that way at first, but think of it like this way: when solar powered cars became a thing. It was much, much longer ago, or your electric cars and stuff like that. Like it was much longer ago than most people knew about it. Like there might have been a concept or whatever, but most of those, copyrights were bought up by, gas companies and shit like that, because they want to control that, because if people are just buying electric cars, then no one's going to buy gas anymore, is the way they saw it. So those patents were bought up so that you would be forced to buy a gas car. So when, eventually that they couldn't keep holding that technology back, eventually people are going to find other ways to make and distribute something that they know that people want, the electric car.
But it's different, because with string theory, whoever has first access can go full God mode, and but this is all just whatever imagination. But whoever gets that power first can use that to prevent anyone else from access.
They could. You're right.
That's what I mean. It's different in that sense, where time and space could really be manipulated in a way that is oppressive to other people, depending on who is that gatekeeper initially.
No, you're right. It's scary.
Yeah.
It is a scary thought to think of. But that's physics, baby.
Science.
That's science, baby.
Science, baby. Yeah, man. I mean, that's the part. It reminds me of like what's currently going on with the gene manipulation in children. Things that, but even to a way more crazy extent, because whoever can harness that first has an unprecedented level of control over everything. No warlord has ever had that kind of power.
Right.
I don't like it. I don't like it, sir.
We'll focus on getting outside of our own solar system first.
Yeah, right.
Before we worry about getting into other dimensions.
We'll work on Mars.
Although there are arguments that say that like the key to getting people that far is by breaking dimensions, but that's a whole nother ball game, boys.
So what's our stance? We're pro free will. That's
absolutely. Yeah. I think it exists. It's like I said, it's a relative thing. It's from a frame of perspective. At least as a white boy in America, I feel like I have free will.
Yeah. What do you think the ultimate conclusion of string theory would be? Like you run out the tape. Where the fuck would it end?
How do you mean the tape?
I don't even know.
The full course of its possibilities?
Yeah, infinite folds, infinite galaxies. I mean, where would string theory ever end? Is it the expanding universe?
Ideally, it's everything. It's everything that we could possibly imagine is governed by what we can learn with string theory.
See, I don't even like the idea of infinite anything. Like infinite jelly beans or like candy? Sure. Infinite space?
I thought you were going to say no. Like, no, like, don't give me infinite jelly beans. I was going to have to say, like, Steven,
jelly beans.
No one's offering you infinite jelly beans.
I sure wish they were.
No one
It'd be a lot cooler
did.
if they did. But I just can't get my head around, infinite. It's too much.
It is. It's way too much. We can't conceive it.
Fifth and sixth dimensions.
It's fucky. It's not supposed to make sense. It doesn't. We have no frame of reference to it, so there's no reason for it to make sense. It's totally logical that it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I enjoy exploring it, even if I feel like I'm wandering through the dark, bumping into walls. But you something.
Are. It's all theoretical stuff, and it's based on ideas that we. I mean, even the way that we see dimensions, it's trying to break the idea of like, we can't keep looking at it in the way that we look at our own dimensions because it doesn't really make sense to.
Right.
Because if we did, if it was that easy, then we would probably have found them by now, or we could find them much easier, which we're hoping that is. But if they're outside of our reach, it's probably because we're looking at it in the wrong way. We're looking at it in a way that we are familiar with rather than outside of what our understanding is.
What do you think time travel would feel like?
It would probably hurt everything and everywhere. It would probably hurt
the old time sickness.
It would probably hurt in a way that no one's ever been hurt before in their consciousness.
Sure.
In their core, the thing that makes you in your brain, that little bit of where your personality is, that makes you individual, that would hurt, kind of thing. Like that would, because
why? Because our brains being rearranged,
because of everything, all of your atoms, all of your particles would have to go faster than the speed of light, either one way or the other through time. And for it, if you were to come out clean on the other side,
right,
then if you don't suffer consequences of like, losing limbs and, being mangled up on a molecular level, there has to be a cost to that.
It's like a whiplash.
Yeah.
It's like every high Yeah,
That's my
the low.
theory. Yeah, exactly.
It's all equals out in the end. It's all balance.
It's that causality for you.
Yeah. Learn how to die and be as balanced as possible.
That's it.
That's
our advice this week.
Yeah. Yeah, shit, man. I got to get out of here and do this homework here in a bit. Man. I feel so much better. Something that it makes it all feel so pointless. What do I need a job for? I got string theory. Gonna put that on my next applications.
I'm calling my boss tomorrow morning and telling him I can't come to work because of string theory.
Sorry, I'm gonna be late, bro. I'll meet you there in the next timeline.
He asked me about the podcast when I told him I was doing string theory. I mean, I've mentioned it to him before that we do a podcast, and I think it's probably been the more polite thing that you do, like when you don't want to like pry on people's lives or whatever. But he did ask me about it today, and I was like, yeah, and I sent him the link to it. So hopefully you'll become a listener. He said particularly he's interested in the string theory episode. But nice. I told him just don't listen to anything before like 9. Don't start with that yet.
Well, hello.
We are still figuring it all out, but people seem to like it.
Friend.
They listen to the first ones and they keep going. So,
dude, they sound so old though already. Isn't that weird?
Yeah,
it's going through a different timeline. Looking back though,
we went through a bunch of different test ones too to like make sure that we didn't really have that. And I mean, of course, you're always bound to. I'm sure we're gonna look back on 1 through 30 by the time we get to 60 or whatever, and it'll be like, ugh.
Honestly, that's part of the reason I think I'm falling in love with podcasting more and more, because I love having like an account of our lives, like to look back on. Like it's so weird to see what was going on, You definitely broke up for most of that, but I'm sure it was beautiful. I saw you freeze just right. That was funny. I look forward to listening to what you think of our podcasting and having a. He said what I heard last from you was having an account of kind of like what our lives and stuff like that. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. I feel like we're astronauts in space and our ship got shot down. We're stranded, and these are like the audio files they recovered. I'm always like journey to new timelines. Yeah. So thanks again for listening. We want to send a thank you to Approaching Human for the use of his music. You can find his work on SoundCloud at Approaching-Human. Thanks, John. You can make sure to check out the show page at Trashcats Trashcast on Instagram for news and art from the show. Also make sure to, I think we said we're not going to mention the Reddit anymore. We can just take that one out of there. Yeah. Look for us on Facebook instead. Yeah. Check out the Facebook Trashcats Trashcast. If you're bored, you can check out my trash yard on Instagram at Skyzix, SKYZICX. Who else did we feature? What was its name? We had Kakao. Michio Kaku. Yep. And the Kurzgesagt YouTube channel. Yep. Definitely go look at that shit. It's really cool. And then Markin Dussel. And then just Google AI recreating Rembrandt. And there's some cool articles on that. And go watch Midnight Gospel. Yeah. Fuck yeah. That's it, right? Tune in next week. Next Wednesday, we're going to be doing a freestyle next. Hell yeah, we are. Yeah, mixing it up. And that's going to be all for us today. Go fast, eat trash. Stay classy, and eat trashy. See you next time.